Okay, so I couldn't do a mid-season review without going over this whole SAG-AFTRA and WGA strike. Now, according to this, there are about 160,000 actors registered with SAG-AFTRA. There are about 20,000 members registered with the WGA, West and East side. There are about 170,000 members of IATSE. IATSE, they are the crew union. So we've got the actors, the writers, and the crew. So let's just add all those people together. Okay. 350,000. So we have 350,000 people fighting for their wages. Not the crew yet, but let's just add them in. These are the people you need to make content, to make movies. The actors, the writers, and the crew. Now, how much does a movie studio cost? Well, let's look that up. A movie studio, okay, so in South Africa, in my country, we have a movie studio with the huge Universal Studios logo outside. It's called Cape Town Film Studios. It cost $30 million to make. But a really snazzy American studio will cost you $500 million. So let's use the higher price. You can get a cheaper one, but let's just go for the worst case scenario, 500 million. Okay, so we have 350,000 people who are registered in unions. It costs $500 million to build a studio. Let's do some math. 500 million divided by 350,000. Okay, so if every single one of these union members contributed $1,428.57, they would have a movie studio, their own studio. Now, what kind of a business entity can we use to set up such a thing? Well, we could use a company, LLC. There's no limit on the amount of shares you can have in an LLC. We could also use a co-op. Okay, so now we can have 350,000 union members, all with an equal share legally in our capitalist corporate system of owning their own means of production. The writers will write the stories, the crew will shoot it, and the actors will act in it, and they'll do their own background acting. And then they can sell it themselves. They don't have to put it to distribution companies if they don't want to. They can go directly to the consumer, or they can sell the package completed to Disney or Paramount or whatever, and then get the terms that they want instead of begging for scraps that are worthless. And why do I say they're worthless? Well, let's just look at some of the history of how studios have screwed actors. So remember that time when this famous actor that I won't name acted in that famous movie? The movie was made on the cheap, but then it won all these awards, and the actor had a back end deal, meaning that he was willing to take a low salary for the movie, but if the movie did well and made a lot of money, he would make money on the back end. Remember that story? Well, what happened? He signed the contract, the movie did well, it won a lot of awards, and then the studio came back to him and said, "Oh, sorry, there were a few mistakes in your contract. We knew there were mistakes in there, but you're not going to get paid." And so he sued them for $10 million. Now, they always tell you when an actor sues these people, but you never know if they ever get paid or get their money back, never mind the legal costs. So why do you think actors that a corporation whose sole interest is to make things as cheap as possible is going to give you a good deal. I mean, over 150 years ago, a man called Karl Marx wrote a book, and his book was called Capital, or Das Kapital. And in the book, he talks about the labor value, the labor theory of value, something like that. It's in here. Where is it? Basically, a theory about labor and value. And in the book, he talks about how you have capitalists who own the means of production, and then you have laborers or workers, you guys, going on strike. And you, the worker, you are selling your labor power to the capitalist. And as you sell your labor power, you are not part of the finished product. This is where the basic misunderstanding comes in. And you notice it because the one side of the argument, like the studios, are not willing to negotiate because they understand and they see the actors and writers as a commodity. Just like the camera that is rented to make the movie, just like the lights that are rented, and the flats that are built, the wood that's used to build the sets. You, dear actor, dear writer, you are just a commodity within that process. You don't actually own any of that because you don't own the means of production, the capital. What you guys are doing, and goes for everyone who is a laborer, a worker, who earns a salary or a wage, you have decided to sell your labor power, your hours. You might work for 8 hours a day. In film, we work for 16, 18, 20 hours a day. And our real life only begins when we get home. After that, that's when our real life begins. So in exchange for those 8 hours a day that you work, or 16 hours a day that you work, you are paid a price. That's your price. And with that price, the capitalist, the studio, expects you to just be able to sustain yourself so you can come back and work another 20 hours. The price you're getting is the bare minimum of what it takes for you to be able to return back and do your job. You don't have enough money to save because then you would have capital and then you wouldn't need to go back to work. It's like if I am making clothes, I'm going to buy sewing machines. I'm going to buy the cheapest sewing machine that can do what I need it to do. I'm not going to go buy the industrial sewing machine if I'm just making clothes for my friends or people in my community, like down the road. But I am going to buy and invest in an industrial sewing machine if I'm making mass production of clothes. So now, here's the thing. We have streaming, which has changed the business considerably, where movies are bundled and dumped onto streaming sites. That has dropped the value or the demand for content. Now, the labor power that you sell and the capitalist, they have a supply and demand relationship. Okay, so if I'm selling silk for $1, and then tomorrow the price of silk goes up to $2, that means that silk is worth more than the $1, than the dollar, than the paper or the silver of that dollar. So silk is in higher demand than silver because the price of silk has gone up, while it takes more resources for me to buy silk. Well, and what usually happens is everyone then goes into that business. So capitalists, the people who own capital, they will take out their money from other places and they will put it in the area that's experiencing lots of growth. And when all the people saw Netflix making mad buku cash, they decided, let's take money, let's see where can we take money from the industry so that we can put it into the streaming thing. This was written 150 years ago. And then what happened? HBO Max. Oh no, the HBO's gone. It's just Max now. As Gloria Swanson used to say, what is it, Max? Norma Desmond. Only actors get that. So we've got Max, we've got Disney Plus, we've got all these other streaming services, Warner Discovery, whatever, and they have pulled all their money into that. No one cares about releasing in cinemas anymore. Nobody cares about television or network television. Everyone's going to streaming. So they have taken the money out of all of the lucrative places they had it, where actors were getting these mad $30,000 residuals, and now the money's in the streaming. And so if you are coming with your own development deal and package that's already done, you would have a better chance on streaming. That's why you see indie filmmakers making mad cash with films that they made on their cell phones, because it's high turnaround and they can make a lot of them, dump them on a site just like that's being done to mainstream movies, and then get easy returns from AVOD. But now what happens to the union workers? As they say in the book written by Karl Marx 150 years ago, the wages of the workers never balance out, meaning just because people are making money in one area, that wealth increase in this area means there's a decrease in the other area. Going back to our example of silk, if silk costs $2 today, but yesterday it cost $1, then all the other commodities in relation to silk, their value has gone down. So let's compare silk and cotton. So if silk and cotton are $1 today, and tomorrow silk is $2, but cotton is $1, cotton's value has dropped by half because silk's value has increased by 50%. So now half the people are going to be interested in paying for cotton, because all the people who own factories that make clothes are going to be wanting to buy silk. Now let's talk about competition, because what you're going to have is all the people who are selling silk, they're going to be great. They're going to be happy because they can then control the price. So it's a seller's market. The sellers have the benefit, of the opportunity, have the upper hand against the buying class. And right now, that's the tech industry, because you need servers and internet and coders and UI inventors, graphic designers to create all these streaming platforms. You need algorithms, you need data collect, all of. So those guys are making tons of money, as well as independent producers who make their own content and control the means of production. But then on the other hand, you have the cotton. The people who are selling cotton are now fighting with the people selling silk, because now there's competition within the selling class. And you have the same thing happening, where you have the actors and the writers and the crew, probably soon, fighting with the tech companies, because the main point of contention is artificial intelligence. The tech companies are like, oh no, we'll replace the actors. We'll scan them, we'll pay them half of their daily rate, and then you'll never need to see them again if you don't want to. Now, what if one of those actors you scanned becomes the next Brad Pitt? That means you got Brad Pitt at a bargain basement price because you've already scanned him. You own his image in perpetuity. And so even after death, you can continue using that image. And for the capitalist, that's awesome. That's a solution. Why? Because the price of the labor has gone down. And that's all the capitalist cares about. In fact, that's legally mandated by the policy of a company. Your goal is to make a profit. And if you don't make a profit, then you're failing your shareholders and you get fired. So there's no incentive for them to try and equalize the cotton and the silk. They just go where the silk is. So my thing is like, why can't people just get out and stop begging? I literally just told you it costs $1,500. If each of you people put in $1,500 into a company, you would have $500 million, and you would be able to own your means of production. You would be the capitalist. And then you can decide where to spend the money and how much your value is worth. Let's look at another example, okay? It's like you are working on a field. And let's say you are making tomatoes. You don't own the field. The field is owned by the field owner, the master, the studio. You get paid $1 for your time working on the field. The capitalist is able to take those tomatoes and sell them for $2. So in order for the capitalists to sustain themselves and maintain their capital, their power over you, they have more than you. They doubled it, right? So you take your $1 and you go home and you buy McDonald's, and now that $1 is gone forever. They have their $2, they take $1 and pay you tomorrow to come back. Now they still have another dollar. Then the cycle continues again. Then the third day they have $2, but you're still getting your $1. And then the third they have $3. Then eventually it goes on until the capitalist or the studio has millions and millions of dollars. And then you guys say, okay, why aren't I getting a share of this? I've made you rich. Why aren't I getting my residuals? I deserve it. But one of the arguments that the AMPTP made was that, why don't the actors also share in the risk and the failures? Why do they only want money now that I have $1 million after 5 years or whatever? What about when I couldn't sell the tomatoes and I didn't make that dollar? Why didn't they come and say, okay, fine, I'll take 50 cents today because, you only sold 50 cents worth of it. I'll take 50, it's fine. Why do they only want the sum of the dollars that I have now? And I think that's where the fundamental clash of ideologies is, and the reason why they're not coming to an understanding, because the unions and actors are coming from a sense of social responsibility and emotion, whereas the capitalists and studios are coming from a place of logic. Now, there is room for both, but the logical thing to do is for actors to divest from the system, just like the audiences are divesting from woke culture and not buying the products. The actors should and the writers should stop buying the products too. In other words, stop selling their labor where it has been devalued. Because this issue, it goes beyond what they're fighting for, because the studios are going to win in the end, because even if they get a 5% increase, it's still a loss in the total industry. What do I mean? Well, fine, you get your 5% increase, but the studios will still get their 30% increase or whatever. And so you haven't really balanced the scales, because prices of goods are going to rise, inflation. And that's one of the things Fran Drescher was saying, that the wages are not rising in line with inflation. And so the money is not even worth what it used to be. You're literally getting paid less than what you're worth. But the worst thing that's going to happen is how it's going to affect the international community. Because what's going to happen is actors, writers in Hollywood are not going to get the money that they were used to. So, because of the wide reach that Netflix has in producing content all over the world, and you've seen it happen already, they're going to start shooting internationally. And so now they might shoot in Eastern Europe or in Australia or India. And then they're going to displace the creatives working in those countries, because they'll be offering rates that are more than Hollywood, right? But look at it this way: would you rather pay 1,000,000 rupees to get Brad Pitt to act in your movie in India? Or would you rather pay someone local and turn them into a Brad Pitt? You'd rather just get the one that's already made. And so then the people in those countries are not going to get jobs. And we've already seen it happening with a lot of the content coming out. And we've also seen it with movie bundling, movie dumping, which has been going on for decades, where a movie fails in Hollywood and then they bundle it in a package and they sell it to international markets for cheap. And so people in international markets, like in my country, they would rather buy 6 movies bundled together. One of them is a hit, 5 of them are duds. It's cheaper to do that than to produce a whole new movie from scratch in my country. So we have over 80% of our media coming from Hollywood because it's just cheaper. And so what does that do to our film industry? It makes it harder for the locals. And this is going to only get worse unless you take power back into your hands. First of all, read this book that this man wrote 153 years ago, 56 years ago, where he tells you that you are never going to win this war unless you own the means of production. It's nothing personal. The studios are not evil, they're not bad. They are doing what they are legally mandated to do. You do not own the pie. You are just the pie dish that is used to make the pie and get it delivered and sold. And I know there's an emotional attachment because you are the face of the brand that the audience interacts with. But that face is part of the product. The same way that the stitches that were made on this cardigan are a part of this product. The person who made these stitches doesn't own the product. They are just a piece that was needed, a commodity that was needed to stitch it together. And that's the current capitalist system we live in. And I'm just saying, why not use it to your advantage and form your own corporation It's only gonna cost 1,500, and that's for the top end studio. If you want the low end studio, well, not low end, a decent working studio, I'll tell you how much that's gonna cost you. So 30 million divided by 350,000 union members, $85.71. Go drive Uber for one day, make $85.71, and you've literally got your own huge studio. I mean, the studio in the Cape Town Film Studios is so beautiful. It's so huge. You could own your own studio for $85, and you're out there begging for $10 residuals. Guys, come on, think. Think. These people hate you. They said they want to wait until you lose your homes. How can you work for people who want you, who hate you? It's like being in a relationship with somebody who doesn't like you or who mistreats you, and then you keep going back over and over again. It doesn't make sense. $85, and you've got your own studio, guys. And then you write, and writers already, you don't get paid for the development process. You develop for free, unless you have like an overall deal or whatever, but you generally will develop for free, and you only get paid once the thing has been bought and then like the real script has been ordered. Otherwise, so you don't tell me oh, I don't want to pay $85, because then who's going to pay me to write? You're already writing for free. You're already acting for free. Do you know how bad women get paid in Hollywood? So don't come tell me that, oh no, but then if I buy my own studio, I have to write for free, I have to act for free, and then I only get paid once I sell the movie, if it gets... You will definitely, A, your self-esteem will be just through the roof. And B, you'll actually get to act in real stuff. None of this contrived bullshit. And you can actually make the writing process fun. You don't have to cram it all in like 3 weeks. And then you can release your own product under your terms and conditions. Like, am I the only one who's figured this out? $85, you've got a studio. And the great thing about having each and every one of you pay this $85 is because you work together. You know, they said that 98%, Fran Drescher was like 98.912% of the actors in SAG-AFTRA, or the people in SAG-AFTRA, because it's also like DJs and stuff. It said that 98% of them voted to go on strike. So why don't you also vote in this $85 company that I'm pitching you? You get everyone involved, and then you do votes. You say, okay, so where should we build the studio? Put it to a vote. Okay, we're building it in Durban, in South Africa, in Eastern Europe, because then that way you're not lowering the prices, you're actually helping the international markets, because you'll be coming in with your expertise and training them. One of the things you guys are fighting about is that they're decreasing the writers' rooms, and so there's less contact with more experienced people and much more alienation and less training. So you guys are going to be training and working and living out the socialist communist dream in a capitalist system, without revolution, without bloodshed. You're literally just registering a company, paying $85 for your share, and then you're voting on the operation of that business. And if you want to keep the studio stateside, fine. Then pay $1,458.71 each, and then you've got your $500 million studio. And again, you vote on what stories to tell, who's acting in what. It's all democratic. You guys love voting for like administrative democracy, like who's gonna make, the laws and stuff. But what about voting for your money? What about economic democracy? What about voting for how your labor value is spent? You go to work every day. Why not make that a part of your life? Why make it just this thing that you go to sustain yourself, and then you go to a bar and drink your paycheck away because you can't save it? I mean, savings are a dream or a lie. There's no savings. So just you drink it away and then you go. But $85? Don't go drinking for one weekend. You've got $85. And then and a company. And then you wouldn't need to go drinking because you'll be so excited that you'll be working on so many projects. And then you can even rent out the studio to other productions. I mean, just think of the possibilities. Call up Nicole Kidman, call up Brad Pitt, call up Jennifer Aniston. These people have production companies. They know they can inspire you guys. They can form the company for you, like do all the paperwork. Work together. We still live in slavery. The only difference is you can choose who your master can be. That's what W.E.B. Du Bois said. Because you can just quit and go to another boss, quit and go to another boss. But now, with having your own studio, you can't quit because you're the boss. And that means you're no longer a slave to the system. Why is that such a bizarre thing? Like, why don't people get that? It's like, I'm trying to figure it out. It's literally that easy. You already put in the hours. Why not put them in for yourself? We all know, we've all done those 18-hour, 20-hour days. Sometimes you start at 5 in the morning. Sometimes you start at 5 at night. And then you have to drive home sleepy. And, in the beginning it's fun, but there is that point where it's just a daze and you don't know what's going on. And it's a nice feeling because it feels like you're in another dimension. Um, those long hours can be fun because you don't even remember half the time what's going on. But at the end of it, you have this movie and then it's done. But if you don't want to do it that way, you don't have to because you're the owner. You could do normal hours, 8 to 5, and you go home to your family or whatever you decide. And it's like, when you read this book, they say we can see that if capital grows rapidly, competition among the workers grows with even greater rapidity. That means the means of employment and subsistence for the working class decrease in proportion even more rapidly. But at the same time, the rapid growth of capital is the most favorable condition for wage laborer. And that's what people can't see. They're focusing on that one part without taking into consideration the other part. Because yes, the tech people are making hella money right now. So much money. And that's good for them. But as they say, competition among the worker grows even more because the actors and the writers are not able to sustain themselves. Because overall, the subsistence for the working class decreases even faster. Because with the tech people making more money, they can buy more goods. If they can buy more goods, the prices will go up. Look at San Francisco. People are kind of living on the streets. But other people are doing well because they all just driving up the prices. It's literally written 157 years ago. So why is everyone acting dumb now? Go, we have no idea what's going on. Why is this? It's written by Karl Marx in 1853, 1857, 1867. Like, duh. Why the hell do you think I invented scribble bites? Because I ain't gonna go work there and beg for people to pay me to act. I can just act for myself. Like, hello? What's wrong with people? And it's like, I was watching this video where the person was explaining it. And it's like, they reach a certain point, and it was a great video. I'm just saying, I just wish they could have gone that one step further. The guy was saying it was like the best video I've seen, production wise and everything. He was saying that he actually went to the picket lines and he asked the people there why they are striking, the SAG-AFTRA people. And he also downloaded documents from the AMPTP, the Alliance of Motion Picture Producers, whatever. And he was analyzing it, and he gave this example. He said, you make pencils in a factory, and you go to your boss and you say, I make pencils in your factory, but the pencils, you making tons of money from the pencils, so why can't I get a piece of the pencils? And the boss says, because I take the risk. If I don't pay back my loans or whatever, then I can lose my house. But you just come in and make the pencils. And then he just left it at that. I just wish he'd gone further to say, to discuss what that relationship really means between the worker. Because the worker, there's also something called division of labor. And that's what, AI is doing, according to the strikers. I think AI is quite useful, and that's another story for another day. But it is one of the concerns is the division of labor, and it would have been interesting to hear him go further to talk about and discuss what happens if the human making the pencil is no longer needed, because now a machine or an AI can make the pencil, or instead of the one worker making the pencil, let's say the worker's 40. Now we can let's hire kids, so we'll get 3 kids to work in the factory because we can get them cheaper. Or if it's not kids, let's get undocumented workers. We can pay them less, and then they can make the pencils for cheaper than the one person. So now the sustenance that one person was getting. So you were getting paid a wage as one person to buy food so you can come back to work. Now you're out of a job because a techie with an AI or someone who's getting paid under the table or who's not in a union or whatever is working in the job. Now you can have three of them for the price of one. You can have 10,000 extras for the price of one because you only paid them half a day. So now you've divided the labor. But now it takes three people, but they're still eating the amount that one person needed to eat. Like, do you get what I'm saying? So if you are going back to my tomato example, you're making tomatoes, you get paid $1, then you go buy the tomatoes for $1 that night, you've got nothing left. You eat the tomatoes, you get energy, your mitochondrion get energy, the glucose pumps through your veins, you go back to work, you make another $1. But now there's three people and they're each getting paid 33 cents. They can't buy the tomato with 33 cents. And that's what's happening to the actors. They're like, no, we'll just scan your body and we're not going to need you for the rest of the day or the week or the month. And then people still want to work with these people. And that's the point where I wish that guy in the video had gone, where he would have exposed the unscrupulousness of the capitalist to say, oh, okay, well then this is a shitty deal. If I can't buy the product that I'm making for you, I don't want to make it anymore. And a lot of this has to do with the streaming services because they don't want to release the numbers. Because then at least they could have kept the old system going a little bit longer if they released the numbers, but they don't want to. So $85 and you have your own studio, guys. And if you paid that $85 a month, you can keep that studio running. Running costs. Don't think I haven't factored those into my equations. So what are you actually waiting for? And that's where I don't understand. Like, I look at people sometimes and I think, do you like suffering? Do you actually enjoy the contentiousness and the contention? Do you enjoy conflict? Or do you enjoy an inefficiency, being inefficient? Because the thing is, people want to see, we want to see content. So what's the quickest, most efficient way to make that content? Do it yourself. Okay, so then do it. That's the part I don't get. Like, is it a mental block? That's, but that's why, that's just my mid-season review on the outside business, because it's Scribble Bites. We are in other dimension. We're in another dimension. We're not in that dimension. We're in another dimension. We don't have strikes at Scribble Bites because we own the means of production. Yeah, it's rough. Read the book called Capital, written by Karl Marx in 1867. Don't read summaries about the book. Don't read what other people have to say about the book, because the people who write about the book and speak about the book, they are the capitalists. They don't want you to know what's in this book. So you need to actually sit down and read this book for yourself, and then you'll see what's in the book, and then you'll get what you want.